Welcome to Dice with Death, where anyone could die with a roll of the dice. I'm your direct messenger, Oli Bateman, and joining me for this week's How-To episode is the one and only Daddy Parrot himself, Mr. Jamie Powis.
Hi, again, happy not to do a rhyme. That's always good.
We love starting these little episodes that aren't campaign episodes with a rhyme. I would like to say before we get into this episode, if you haven't, go to patreon.com/DiceDeathPod. Just go there, see what's over there, maybe donate us some money. We'll talk more about that at the end of the episode. But what we're here for is we've noticed that a lot of you listening, this is like your first experience of Dungeons and Dragons. So we wanted to put a simple guide together, almost like a how to listen to a Dungeons and Dragons podcast episode. So you can be caught up on the story and understand how the mechanics of this game that we love so much work. Jamie's going to start for us with some role play, explaining some role play things.
Yeah, so Dungeons and Dragons is a role play game. And we all work and we all live in this world that's created by someone called the Dungeon Master or Game Master. That's Oli. The game has rules, and sometimes we bend the rules a little bit, and we call that homebrew. So, these are our kind of homebrew rules that are kind of legitimately everywhere, and everyone uses them, but each player is a character.
And each character has a race and a class. Each class gives you different skills and abilities. Jamie, enlighten us. Ark, what is his class and what is his race? Who are you playing on Dice with Death right now?
So Ark is an Aarakocra, so he's a bird person, which means that he can fly. And he's a cleric, which means that he kind of harnesses the powers of the gods. So he has spells from his gods, and he also has really good wisdom, and he's really good at messing up the undead. That's his big strengths. Oli, you play in our kind of home games. You play a monk. So what's a monk all about?
Yeah, so I play a human variant monk specifically. I've always played humans. I don't know why. I just prefer playing humans, and especially the variant type, because you get certain abilities that you can add that other humans don't. But a monk, as we've described before, a kind of glass cannon, as it were, does huge amounts of damage when it can get in really close, but needs bolstering in the Constitution stat block really a lot to keep them from falling down. But yeah, I play a Way of the Sun Soul monk, so I'm living out my Dragon Ball Z kind of Goku fantasy of harnessing all the power from the sun and the energy around me and being this cool martial arts kind of ninja focused quarterstaff wielding guy. But Dungeons and Dragons is full of so many different races and classes for you to pair up, put together, and really have some fun with. Before I even started this campaign, Jamie, Amy, and Adam had to sit down with me and roll some dice and determine the stats for their characters. Now, these rolls influenced 6 main stat blocks, including strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. They are the skills that their character needs to navigate this world in and out of combat. These dice rolls essentially become overall stat block scores, and that overall score determines a modifier for that particular score. That's the number that they plus or minus to a roll that character has. These modifiers level up along with the character once they reach certain levels, meaning that the probability of them succeeding at a much more difficult task increases, but is never guaranteed.
So below the 6 core stat blocks are additional skills that a character can do. There are 18 official skills in total, including perception, history, stealth, athletics, investigation, and loads more. The modifiers are determined from your 6 core stat blocks, and they bolster or diminish how good you are at a particular skill. So if a character wants to perform a particular task like climbing a jagged rock wall, they'd ask to make an athletics check, and that player will roll their d20 and then add their modifier to that roll for an overall skill check to see how well they did.
You might have heard Jamie say D20, and some of you might be thinking, what the hell is a D20? It's the most important die in the game, and it's called a D20 because it has 20 sides to it, meaning that you can naturally roll as high as the number 20 and as low as the number 1. It's a very special dice for tabletop RPG games. So this is the dice that we use to determine all our skill checks. Saving throws, attacks, other skill checks, but you plus or minus your modifiers to the number rolled to decide the outcome. For instance, if I was making a perception check to see if I could spot any enemies, like watching a camp in the woods as we settle down for the night, I would say to the DM, I'd like to make a perception check, please. They'd tell me to roll a d20. Let's say I get a score of 14 on that dice. Then I'd add my modifier, which let's say happens to be a 2. My total score would be 16, meaning, if the DM is nice to me, that I might have spotted that goblin rogue approaching our camp through the bushes to assassinate us. Now, there are other core dice that you can roll within this game, including a d4, d6, d8, d10, and d12. And these, depending on the specifics of your character's equipment and attacks, decide the amount of damage done to an enemy or a foe. Jamie, you're going to take us through the most exciting bit of a d20 now, which is very, very fun.
It's the nat 20 or the nat 1. So rolling a natural 1 equals a critical failure. So it cancels out any modifier you have, and it brings die consequences to your failed actions. So say Titus is holding a boulder over his head and he wants to throw that boulder out into a field. Rolling a critical failure or a nat 1 might mean that said boulder falls from his hands and kills him. Rolling a nat 20 equals a critical success, meaning that you overachieve at the task at hand. Out of combat, this could mean you discover a plot-changing piece of information, reveal more information about a character, enemy, or situation you find yourself in, or succeed in an impossible task. And then during combat, it means you do a lot more damage, potentially slaying your foes quicker and more effectively.
Now, combat. Combat is huge in D&D. It's not just about the role-play and the situations you find yourself in. We like to fight, especially in Dice with Death. It's called Dice with Death for a reason. But when you enter combat, everything goes into bullet time. Am I right in saying, Jamie, that every action or round lasts about 6 seconds?
Absolutely.
Everyone rolls a d20 to pick the order that they attack in. This is what we call initiative. It's the first thing that you do when you get into combat. It's to decide who goes first, second, third, fourth, and so on. If you want to attack, you roll a d20. If you roll high enough, you will hit your enemy, and then you roll that damage. For example, Ark.
Yes.
You're stood in front of, I don't know, let's say your favoured enemy right now, a Githyanki. A Githyanki has walked up to you at Stadia Concretia. We're on the Champion Games and they want to fight you. They draw their sword and they lunge towards you. You have rolled first in your initiative, so you are going to get to go first. What is it that you'd like to do?
I'm going to hit him with my sword, please.
Brilliant. So, Ark has readied his sword. Jamie has pulled out his D20 and he's going to roll to try and hit that Githyanki's armor class or AC.
I rolled a 15 plus my modifier, which is 5. So that's 20.
That's 20. Now, that's not a nat 20. That is a modded 20 for everybody listening at home. But that means that Ark, Jamie's character, has hit this Githyanki successfully. Ark, roll me some damage.
Not rolled very well. That's 4 damage.
4 damage on a modded 20 towards this Githyanki. Amazingly, even with 4 damage, you slit this Githyanki's throat and green puscular blood goes everywhere and you have defeated your foe.
Thank you. Love it.
When everyone has had an action, that's the end of the round and the order starts again. So Jamie goes, then Amy goes, then Adam goes. Maybe some enemies go in between depending on the initiative that they've rolled. But that is essentially how combat works within Dungeons & Dragons.
So if you're a brand new player listening to a Dungeons & Dragons podcast like ours, we really hope that this has helped you understand the base level mechanics that go into playing this wonderful game.
If you'd like to donate some money to this podcast, then head to patreon.com/DiceDeathPod. Huge, massive shout out from me, Jamie, Amy, and Adam to everybody who has donated so far. I think we've got a couple of Americans, some Canadians. You're all international and we all love you for it. So thank you. You can follow us on social media at DiceDeathPod and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And when you do, leave us a 5-star review, please, because it actually really does help us out. You know, when I say that, I don't think people really understand how much it actually helps. But a 5-star review literally pushes you up in terms of the podcast charts and ladder. So please, if you like this podcast, leave us a 5-star review. We'll see you next time where we return to Stadia Concretia in the aftermath of the Planewalker battle with Ark, Titus, and Vixen in another episode of Dice with Death. Say bye, Jamie.
Bye.